You know what? Sometimes the environment that you are in is not necessarily conducive to the type of work that you need to do. Case in point, I'm recording this video from the car while I'm driving to go pick a child up from school. But you know what? Things have to get done, whether it's the right moment or not. And this week's video is all about how to deal with suboptimal conditions, put it that way. So in the revenue ready engineer, your mindset needs to be around getting things organized, getting things complete, and building systems that allow you to be able to do work without your input. Those are the three things that I think are the best skills to get you to where you want to be. So I'm going to start with the one at the end and work my way forward. And maybe I won't even get to the first two. I think the first two, honestly, are more skill-oriented types of development. They're being available and being ready to talk to a customer, or being available to do something like this, recording a video. Those things don't happen because you just felt like it, right? They happen out of necessity. In a role where you are facing customers and you're dealing with people, you're never going to have the same situation twice. It's not quite like software development or like claims processing. Like my wife used to do claims processing for an insurance company, and it's essentially like the same thing over and over again. Yes, the claims are different, but fundamentally there's a process from beginning to end that always is how that works. In sales, especially in enterprise sales, that's almost never how it goes. Different areas of your customer will have different philosophies about what buying looks like. So procurement's job basically is to keep from spending money unless absolutely necessary. An engineer's job is to just get the tools that they need to get things done, and they want as little friction as possible. In some ways, the engineer's job and a CTO's job are almost the same in that regard, but the fundamental difference is the CTO has to think in terms of headcount and in terms of finance, whereas an engineer often doesn't have visibility into what those things look like, and they don't get to make those decisions with that stuff in mind. Like, for example, someone that's a storage engineer that just wants this particular tool in order to automate their storage doesn't really have purview into how much else the business spends on other things like network or servers or whatever. So oftentimes their view is biased towards the particular tooling and the particular type of environment that they have worked in, whereas you tend to get less of that bias from higher levels when you're going to sell. This is one of many reasons why in sales in general, they always tell you to try to sell from the top down and not from the bottom up. Now, having said that, I currently work for and am very successful in an organization that in practice sells from the bottom up. And there are ways to do that. But in general, your life will be a lot easier if you can try to sell from the top down. What does sell from the top down really mean? Honestly, it means knowing your org chart. So one of the things that I want you to think about as we are at the beginning of the year and you're getting into account planning and you're getting into putting together systems that work for you is to think about building a system for how you develop your org chart and how you put together the pieces of your customer or customers, multiple. And that's one of the first systems that you should put in place. I know that's weird to say, thinking, there are lots of systems that you want to have around like catching up with emails or around building out account plans or doing technical stuff. For the most part, those systems generally exist in most organizations, or if they don't exist, there are well-treaded paths for how to put those things together. But org charts, that one is a little bit more difficult. Now, I know that some companies do purchase investigative services from other providers like Zoom Care or Zoom something. I can't remember. There's one that's local here that I worked for a company that used. And basically they act as investigative firms to try to figure out what org charts look like at organizations, and then they sell it as a service. I'm going to tell you right now, sorry for having to adjust the camera, those suck. They rarely are ever up to date, and you don't have a really good idea of the actual impact that a particular role has at your organization unless you build an org chart yourself. Because one of the things that you can do now with AI tools is you can put together graphs that will allow you to understand the amount of connection between roles as opposed to just simply the hierarchical org chart. In the old days, a lot of organizations would be very hierarchical. Like there would be a C-suite, and then you'd have directors, and then you'd have vice presidents, and then you'd have lead engineers, and it would go down a very hierarchical list. What has happened in many organizations in modern times is that because there are separate tools that are outside the line of business that have impacts across a lot of a business. And by that, I mean things like IT or AI or try to think of some other examples. In some organizations, vendor relations is even like this. You have these organizations that actually sit sideways on the stack. They don't sit in the hierarchy. And so as a result, they may have outsized influence on top level roles in the line of business. And maybe you aren't selling to the line of business. Maybe you are. In my role, I actually sort of have two jobs in that because I'm selling technically a software infrastructure that happens to be uniquely suited to work both in a network line of business and in IT, I actually have two customers. I have one company that I work for, but I actually have two customers. That's a unique scenario, and many of you will not fall into that bucket, but it's important for you to know whether you are selling a product that belongs to a hierarchical type of set of relationships or a functional set of relationships. And if you are fortunate to be in tech sales and you are just going straight for IT or straight for the CTO suite and you don't have to deal with a line of business, your job is usually a little bit easier to convince them to sit down and have a conversation with you. It still matters that you build out an org chart, even if you're doing that, because you want to know who has the purse strings, what their authority is. You may even want to have interviews with certain customers and ask those contacts, like, how much authority does a vice president usually have as far as spending goes? Or how much authority do engineers have to be able to spend out of OpEx rather than having to go and sign up a capital expenditure? How much money is considered a CapEx spend? At different companies, that's different things. Some places, literally anything over $50 is a capital expenditure. At some places, you could spend up to 10 grand or more as an operational line item, and people just, throw out the credit card and no one cares. So you want to think about those kinds of things when you're getting involved in a sales process. And I would highly encourage you to divide up the types of opportunities that you have into ones that could potentially close very quickly and that might even fall under an OpEx scenario, and ones that would be very intensive, require a long sales cycle. And see who in the org chart that you are building might have the right authority to do as instant spend. Because what you don't want to do is you don't want to waste the CTO's time or waste higher levels time on low priority tasks for them or on things that they literally delegate other people to do, right? Like the whole point of having an organization of people under you to do things for you is so that you don't have to do them. Like, because everyone is busy. Everyone has more work on their plate than what they have time for. Everyone does. And the reason for that is that companies inherently are there to make money. The fewer people they have, the more money they can make, and they will try to stretch everyone to the point of oblivion. That's just just how it works. It is one of the reasons why this job is much better than being in a line of business organization or in an IT department. So I want you to think about how you're going to build your org chart, what that org chart is going to look like, and ultimately think about what kind of tools you can use to put it together. If you want some ideas or you have some ideas, feel free to leave some comments below, and I'll come back next week with another video.